Monsieur Dubé, appuie.
Mr. Dubé, seconded by Ms. Trudel, moves that motion number 3 be amended by deleting paragraph A.
Statements by members, déclaration de députés, l'honorable député de...
The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher des Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, on Saturday, the Bloc Québécois chose the first woman leader in its history, and she is here on the Hill today. Martine Ouellette was chosen leader of the Bloc Québécois by acclamation, and when I say she was acclaimed, I can tell you that it was to thunderous applause. Allow me to quote our new leader, Mr. Speaker. We're at the start of something new, something beautiful, great, legitimate, and important. We are following the path created by those who preceded us, but being innovative and doing things differently. We are working to better reinvent ourselves, and with all of the challenges facing the planet, environmental, social, and political challenges, Quebec must be independent. Our adversaries say we aren't open, but on the contrary, we're open and we have so much to contribute internationally. With Martine Ouellette, the Bloc Québécois is back in force and that's bad news for the Federalists, believe you me. Welcome, Martine.
Mr. Speaker, a decade ago, Russian Ambassador to Washington Sergei Kislyak visited Ottawa as Russian Deputy Foreign Minister. Back then, I confronted Kislyak about Russia's cyber attacks on Estonia and its use of gas supply cutoffs to intimidate Ukraine. 10 years of diplomatic resets, the result? Russia is exponentially more belligerent. Then, Russia's cyber attacks shut down Estonia. Today, they undermine the integrity of the U.S. presidential elections. Then, Russia punished Ukraine for its pro-Western policies with gas shutoffs. Today, Russia's war against Ukraine, 10,000 killed, 2 million displaced. Diplomatic engagement must include the strength of military conviction. Renewed Operation Unifier is a clear geopolitical deterrent to Russia's revanchist imperial intent. We are proud of our 200 Canadian soldiers serving in Ukraine.
We are. The Honourable Member for Cypress Hills Grassland.
Mr. Speaker, last year students from East End School committed to a WE project. Because area families had relied on Ronald McDonald House in the past, they decided to fundraise so others could stay there as well. Their goal, to raise $30,000. A core group of students headed up by Janice Michel organized the Raising Hope Gala for their small town. They sold tickets and tables. They rounded up 180 auction items. Area restaurants and caterers volunteered their cuisine. Local entertainers and an auctioneer donated their talents. Mr. Speaker, the auction alone raised $30,000, with over $35,000 coming from sponsored ticket sales and donations. The goal, $30,000. The total, nearly $66,000. Last week, the group went to Ronald McDonald House not just to deliver the check, but to serve once more. They serve supper to clients of the House. Mr. Speaker, there are places and people in this world that give more than they take. I'm so proud that Southwest Saskatchewan is still one of those places. Check it all out at Raising Hope RMH.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver Quadra.
Mr. Speaker, today marks the Persian New Year Festival of Nowruz, which is celebrated by Persian, Central Asian, Kurdish, and Ismaili Canadians. Nowruz has been celebrated since ancient times and serves as a testament to the longevity of the millennia-old Persian culture. This is a wonderfully colorful occasion when community members come together to mark the first day of spring, an annual victory of the spirit of the sun over cold and darkness, and a time when nature renews its vows with life. The ancient Persians saw this as a symbolic moment, that in the constant struggle between good and evil, in all dimensions, physical, emotional, moral, and spiritual, good will always prevail. To the community in Vancouver Quadra and to Canadians across the country, I hope you enjoy your gatherings with family and friends around the HoC and wish you the greatest of blessings in the new year. Nowruzatan Piruz.
The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, Trois-Rivières kicked off the 5th edition of the International Francophonie Days in the Morrissey region, and this evening, at the Order of La Pléiade ceremony, Ottawa will recognize the importance of promoting French and cultural dialogue. Today, March 20th, the Francophonie is celebrated across the globe. 274 million French speakers is good, but 274 million speakers who organize themselves and equip themselves with institutions to enhance their stature is even better. We have the International Organization of the Francophonie, l'Assemblée des Parlementaires de la Francophonie, the Francophone University Agency, the Association of Francophone Mayors, TV5, and others. The Francophonie is a space for cultural exchange, but increasingly it's also a platform for economic growth and the sharing of scientific information, which give us hope today for an even more promising future.
Well, member for Sackville, Preston, Chiswick-Cook.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today we're celebrating International Francophonie Day. And I can point out, my colleague said there were some more than 274 million people speaking French and celebrating this culture. In Canada, French is on an equal footing with English. And in my career, I spent a great part of my time as an educator defending that right. Our communities, our Francophone and Acadian communities require protecting, and this requires education and focus on early childhood. In Nova Scotia, we have the Provincial Youth Council, that is an organization that has put together an initiative called J'aime right ton accent. These types of initiatives are so important for the next generation, and I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, that this is flourishing in Nova Scotia.
Member for Foothills.
Mr. Speaker, I am proud to represent the riding of Foothills, the heart of cattle country, where pioneers settled the West, relying on work ethic, ingenuity, family, and horsemanship. I am proud to say that that character remains true in Alberta today. And today I rise in this House to pay tribute to an incredible Albertan who epitomizes that character. A Foothills resident who, through determination and amazing skill, has accomplished what no other Canadian has done before. Earlier this year, Millerville's John Swales made history when he was named the world's greatest horseman. Swales and his mount Heza Diamond Spark bested the top competitors on earth to earn the title of Best in the World at the National Reined Cowhorse Association Celebration of Champions in Fort Worth, Texas. Albertans know what it takes to be a champion: heart, tenacity, and talent, and John Swales is no exception. Mr. Speaker, it is a great pride that I congratulate Alberta's renowned Swales family and, of course, John, on being the first Canadian ever to be named greatest horseman in the world.
The honourable member for Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, I'm honoured to welcome Nowruz, the Persian New Year and arrival of spring. Recognized by the Parliament of Canada, Nowruz is a 3,000-year-old tradition celebrated by Iranian, Afghani, Azeri, Turkish, and other cultures rooted in Central and Western Asia. This festival embodies a wealth of Asian traditions and is a time when families and friends join together at the half-seen table to celebrate new beginnings, exchange gifts, enjoy traditional delicacies, and signify hope for the year ahead. It is an opportunity to renew our collective commitment to harmony, acceptance, and understanding. This year, Nowruz takes on a special meaning as we celebrate also the Canadian 150th birthday. To all Canadians celebrating Nowruz, Har Roozatan Nowruz, Nowruzatan Piruz. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Marcorel-Fortin. Mr. Speaker, last Saturday was the 22nd edition of Dictée Lavalloise, or the Laval Dictation. I rise today to congratulate all those who participated in this family activity. As a former teacher, I'm pleased with the success of this dictation conducted simultaneously in Quebec and France. Mr. Speaker, I also rise today to underscore the International Francophonie Day, to highlight the language that brings us together across the world and from sea to sea to sea here. I'm proud of Canada's action to promote the French language and the values displayed by the Francophonie. I'm proud to be part of a government that recognizes the importance of the French fact today. Mr. Speaker, I am proud to be a Francophone. Happy International Francophonie Day to all.
Honourable Member for Niagara West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to bring to the attention of the House and Canadians watching at home to the work of Global Medic organization. Global Medic's mandate is to save lives by providing short-term rapid response in the wake of disasters and crises, both here at home and abroad. I actually participated in an event last December put on by Global Medic where we packed Welcome to Canada kits for newly arrived Syrian refugee families. The Executive Director of Global Medic, Rahul Singh, also, I want to note, spent some time in Niagara working with our amazing EMS personnel. Global Medic is now one of the top 10 finalists for Google.org's Impact Challenge contest, competing for $750,000 Google grant. If successful, the Global Medic team will use this money to expand its Innovation Rescue AV program in disaster zones to help coordinate humanitarian responders and save lives. I want to wish Global Medic organization the best of luck in this challenge and great success in all their future endeavors. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Brampton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, it gives me great pleasure to speak about the Holi Festival. My colleague and I recognize the importance of Holi every year on the Hill. Holi is a festival of color and love. During the Holi festival, people are drenched in the color while playing Holi with each other. You will often hear a phrase, "Don't mind because it is Holi." Holi shows the victory of good over the evil and thanksgiving. While some choose to worship due to spiritual reasons, others have fun loudly through music, song, and dance. On that day, they forget worries and pursue forgiveness. The end goal is sharing love and happiness with the friends, family, and the community. Mr. Speaker, to my colleagues, family, and the community, I wish you all colorful Holi. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Northwest Territories.
Mr. Speaker, hepatitis C is a contagious viral infection that ranges in severity from mild illness lasting a few weeks to a serious lifelong liver disease. The NBT has the highest rates of hepatitis C in Canada. About 250,000 people are infected with virus in Canada, but most are unaware that they are infected. Many patients do not experience any symptoms until their liver becomes so damaged that they develop cirrhosis, liver cancer, or liver failure. I encourage the development of a national hepatitis C strategy that includes voluntary testing for everyone born from 1945 through 1965 who make up the majority of cases in Canada, as recommended by the Centre for Disease Control. Like many diseases, if caught early, there are much better outcomes for patients. If we work together, we can limit the impact of this virus and protect the health of all Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Calgary Shepherd.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to wish Canadians of Kurdish, Persian, Ismaili, and Central Asian heritage a very happy Nowruz, as this week marks the start of a new year. Coinciding with the launch of spring, Nowruz symbolizes hope for peace, for an end to violence, and for reuniting with friends and family, and marks a new beginning for people around the world. Nowruz is celebrated through a variety of traditions, including by the Kurds, who gather in the countryside to light bonfires, which represent passing from the darkness of the previous year into the light of the next. The Persians, who set the Hafsin table and exchange gifts, and the Central Asians, who plant trees and attend festivities marking the occasion. Mr. Speaker, through you, I am wishing a joyful celebration and sweet, sweet success in 2717 to all Canadians observing Nowruz. Nowruzatan Piruz.
Honourable Member for Long Range Mountains.
Mr. Speaker, last week we braved a nor'easter to celebrate the people of Gander on Broadway at the musical Come From Away. The show moved our Prime Minister, the entire delegation, to laughter and tears by the incredible and true story of how people from my province welcomed thousands with open arms as a town of not 9,000 people nearly doubled, with 38 aircraft landing in just hours on 9/11. Nous savons tous que le Canada...
We all know that Canada and the United States have a strong cultural and commercial link. Last Wednesday, people from the entire world and politicians from both countries reaffirmed that link. It was a magnificent Broadway production that reminded us all of the importance of acceptance, kindness, and welcoming people in need.
That gave the writers support in creating this magical production of the world coming to a small town, and it was workshopped at the Sheraton College. Mr. Speaker, I congratulate the cast and crew and their successes. I encourage you and everyone in the House to see it, and most of all, to visit Gander and Newfoundland anytime, and Labrador, of course, for a taste of our hospitality. Thank you.
Honourable member from Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
Canada's veterans aren't getting the support they deserve. I heard this loud and clear at Nanaimo Legion 10's town hall earlier this month. Vets said both Conservative and Liberal governments are, quote, poisoning patriotism and the desire to serve our country. They said dealing with Veterans Affairs with PTSD is like being given a jigsaw puzzle and turning out the lights. These young vets want a navigator to help them manage the tangled bureaucracy of PTSD treatment and to make sure no vet is discharged without medical benefits and pension in place. They want the lifetime pension for wounded vets restored, as the Liberals promised. The Canadian Forces Ombudsman reinforced this in withering testimony to the Senate March 8th, when he said Canada is not living up to its bargain. This week's Liberal budget must make this right. Our veterans deserve so much better.
The Honourable Member for Beauport, Côte-de-Beaupré, d'Orléans, Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, today is International Francophonie Day. From March 6th to the 12th, I was at the Quebec National Assembly where I participated in a leadership workshop and meetings with the APF alongside Francophone women parliamentarians from across the globe. It was an opportunity to see the extent to which French brings us together over 5 continents. Many Francophones from back home, like Céline Dion, Xavier Dolan, have proven that it's possible to succeed internationally in French, as did Alain Bouchard, the founder of the Couche-Tard corner stores did in the business community. Respect for and preservation of French is a duty for all parliamentarians. The language must continue to be defended, and we must all rise above partisanship. To Francophones from Quebec, Canada, and across the world, and to those who have adopted the French language, happy International Francophonie Day. The Honourable Member for Brome-Missisquoi. As Chair of the Standing Committee on Official Languages, I want to wish everyone an excellent International Francophonie Day. Allow me to underscore the importance of the Francophonie in Canada and across the world. Canada is the second largest contributor to International Francophonie. Some 10 million Canadians speak in our lovely language across the country. As Yves Duthé said, our language has wonderful words. It deals with history through its accent. It has done many things, and it's like a bird in the spring. It comes back to sing its hope to us. In this country covered in snow, it confronts the wind, and we still speak our wonderful language. It's a beautiful language. It needs defending. It provides us with the words we need to understand things and the strength we need to live in harmony.
Questions orales, oral questions. L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Lac Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, in both official languages of Canada, when you spend more money than you have, you end up with a deficit, and it doesn't matter which language you speak, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has lost control of public finances, the government is looking at eliminating tax credit for families. We'll have to wait to see what family is going to have to deal with in Wednesday's budget. They'll be losing tax credits for sports and culture. What tax credits will Canadian families be leaving, and what gifts will the Prime Minister be giving to his friends? This Wednesday, Mr. Speaker, we will be tabling a budget that will help middle-class growth, and that's something we've been working on since the beginning. Last year, we lowered taxes for the middle class, and we increased taxes for the wealthiest 1%. And, Mr. Speaker, this party voted against that middle-class tax cut. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean.
Mr. Speaker, we have voted against the deficit. That's what we have done. Mr. Speaker, we saw that the new American administration will lower taxes on small businesses. And on this side of the border, it will create new challenges to our Canadian small businesses. Can they stay competitive under the new circumstances? Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister lower taxes on Canadian small businesses exactly like he promised, in order to keep them competitive with the American economy and our American neighbors, and help them to create jobs?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The common challenge we face in North America, Mr. Speaker, is to create growth for the middle class, and that's what we've been focused on for a year and a half. That's why we put more money in the pockets of the middle class by lowering taxes on the middle class and raising taxes on the wealthiest 1%. I can remind you, Mr. Speaker, and all others in this House that the Conservative Party voted against lowering taxes on the middle class and raising them on the wealthiest 1%. It's a shame, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Only on that element, Mr. Speaker, it costs $2 billion more than what they said, just on that one change. So that shows to what extent they're completely unable to forecast what things are going to cost. Now, Mr. Speaker, to save face, they're going to sell off our airports. It's as if a family sold their appliances to pay the credit card bill. It doesn't make any sense, Mr. Speaker. Is that something that we're going to see in the budget? Are we going to see Canada's airports sold off to save face for the Prime Minister? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. The Honourable Member will see on Wednesday, like all Canadians, that in this budget we are going to invest in middle-class growth. We'll invest in the future of our country. That's what Canadians expect. We made the choice to reinvest in our communities, in infrastructure, to invest in middle-class growth. We delivered with the Canada Child Benefit, which gives more money to 9 families out of 10 by eliminating benefits for the wealthiest families, and the Conservative Party voted against the Canada Child Benefit.
Well, Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we're seeing a troubling pattern established with these Liberals. They're shutting down debate, they're ramming through legislation, and we have a Prime Minister who doesn't want to answer questions directly on his ethical lapses. Now we find out he only actually wants to be here one day a week to answer questions. That is not accountability. So my question to the Prime Minister is, does he commit that no changes will be made to the standing orders unless he has agreement from all parties in this House?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians elected a government with an ambitious plan for change, for investing in the middle class, investing in the future of this country, and that's exactly what we are busy delivering. We're putting forward legislation that lowered taxes on the middle class, raised them on the wealthiest 1%, put forward a Canada Child Benefit that gives more money to 9 out of 10 Canadian families. We have an awful lot that we need to get done for Canadians to grow the middle class after 10 years of neglect from the previous government that wanted to give tax benefits to the richest Canadians. That's why they voted against the Canada Child Benefit and lowering taxes on the middle class. Unfortunately, that's more what we're going to see.
Remind honourable colleagues that one person at a time has the floor, and now the Honourable Opposition House Leader has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, I was asking the Prime Minister about the standing order changes. Mr. Speaker, if he wants to be accountable, he needs to answer some of these questions directly. We now find out that the Liberals want to shut down this House and only have it open 4 days a week. Canadians have to work 5 days a week. The Liberals should as well. So again, does the Prime Minister commit that if any changes will be made to the standing orders, that he will have agreement from all parties in this House? Yes or no?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians elected a government with a big idea of how we were going to help Canadians, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're always looking for ways to make the workings of this House more efficient, better able to serve Canadians both in the ridings and in Ottawa, and we're happy to open a discussion about whether we should make Fridays a full day of work instead of the half day that the Conservatives seem to want. We're happy to do more work for Canadians. Let's just figure out the best way to do it.
The Honourable Member for Outremont.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals' plan for infrastructure includes a massive privatization bank that could double the cost of infrastructure to Canadian taxpayers. Their plan also seems to include the privatization of Canadian airports. Now, I'm wondering if the Prime Minister could show Canadians exactly where in the Liberal election platform this was ever mentioned. Now, since he has no mandate to do so, will the Prime Minister guarantee that he will not privatize Canadian airports?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Infrastructure Bank was a campaign commitment that we campaigned on to demonstrate the fact that we understand that there is room for global investment of private capital in Canadian infrastructure. It is a way of leveraging more money to be able to build things like public transit, like power grids, the kinds of things that Canadians need more of. These are investments we're willing to make. As for more details, we're looking forward to sharing those with all Canadians on Wednesday when we present our plan to continue to grow the middle class in this country.
The Honourable Member for Outremont. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister didn't answer the question because he cannot answer the question. There is no answer. There is no way to say where this promise was in the Liberals' election platform. It's not there. They never promised to privatize Canadian airports. This is something that is going to mean higher fees for airline passengers across Canada. So either the Prime Minister is making this up as he goes along, or he always intended to privatize our airports. Which is it? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member will know, like all Canadians, how we will create growth for the middle class by investing in our future, by investing in training. The Honourable Member will see to what extent we are ready to invest in the future of this country by giving more money to the middle class, something that, by the way, the member voted against when he refused to vote in favour of our plan to increase taxes for the wealthiest 1% and lowering them for the middle class. The Honourable Member for Outremont. That is false, and he knows that we voted for it, Mr. Speaker.
Also committed to a nation-to-nation relationship with Indigenous peoples and to right historic wrongs. The term nation-to-nation is not a political slogan. It must mean dealing as equals and an awareness of past betrayals. However, Liberals argue that they're not even bound by the decisions of the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal. How can this Prime Minister claim to believe in a nation-to-nation relationship when he refuses to end discrimination against First Nations children and when he continues to fight them in court, Mr. Speaker?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, no relationship is more important to this government than the one with Indigenous peoples. That's why we put forward historic amounts of money, $8.4 billion in the last year's budget, to start the long work of reconciliation. We agree there is much more to be done, but we know that whether it's eliminating long-term drinking water advisories, boil water advisories, or making sure that thousands of Indigenous Canadians started school last September in new schools, we are making concrete differences in the lives of Indigenous Canadians, young and old.
Honourable Member for...
The Honourable Member for Outremont. The truth is...
In court, Mr. Speaker, that's what he's doing.
The Liberals also promised that they would close the tax loophole for stock options for CEOs, which only benefits the wealthy. 2 weeks ago, the Liberals voted in favour of an NDP motion explicitly calling for this loophole to be closed. If now the Liberals refuse to close it, they will have misled the public and this House. So, can the Prime Minister guarantee that in this budget he will close this loophole for the rich, the richest Canadians. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the first thing that we did as a government was to lower taxes for the middle class and increase them for the wealthiest 1%. The honourable member and his party voted against that initiative to lower taxes for the middle class. The reality, Mr. Speaker, is that Wednesday you will see, and everyone here will see, a budget that is focused on middle class growth and the help that Canadians need after 10 years of a Conservative government. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. 10 years of a Conservative government, which ended with a budget surplus of $2.9 billion. Thank you to the Prime Minister for giving me the opportunity to remind Canadians of that fact. Mr. Speaker, in 50 hours, the government will table its budget. People are worried. Why? Because people don't trust the government, particularly the Prime Minister. Remember that we incessantly questioned the Prime Minister about taxes on health and dental insurance, and he, in the end, said no, and then 6 days later, he voted against a motion to do just that. Can the Prime Minister please ensure Canadians that there won't be the Right Honourable Prime Minister? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. Mr. Speaker, our government is committed to investing in the middle class and will continue to invest in people and the economy. Mr. Speaker, this government lowered taxes for the middle class. It was the first thing that we did when we came to power, and we increased taxes on the wealthiest Canadians. Mr. Speaker, we created the Canada Child Benefit, which has helped 9 families out of 10. Mr. Speaker, we have a plan, and we will continue to move forward with that plan. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker will remember that 2 years ago, the current Prime Minister said that for him, small businesses were a way to save on taxes. Maybe for him that's what it is, but for our entrepreneurs, it's everything but small business, anything but a way to avoid taxes. Mr. Speaker, the new American administration means that American entrepreneurs will pay lower taxes than in Canada. Will the Prime Minister commit in the next budget to ensure that our entrepreneurs have a level playing field with their American counterparts? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And once again, I would like to thank my colleague for his question. Mr. Speaker, Canada is well placed in the world. We have very competitive tax rates and benefits compared to the United States and other OECD countries. People who invest in Canada have access to a well-educated and competent labour pool. We will continue to invest in skills and productivity to ensure that we will maintain this advantage here in Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Central Okanagan, Smilkameen Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, in the first year alone, Liberal deliverology has failed to deliver good-paying jobs, and it wasn't for the lack of funds, Mr. Speaker. The Liberals shot past their $10 billion modest deficits, and they have no credible plan to get us back to black. And worse yet, Mr. Speaker, the term balanced budget has now become a dirty word for the finance minister, who refuses to ever use it. Why is that, Mr. Speaker? Why has this Liberal government abandoned their promise to return to a balanced budget in 2019?
The Secretary for Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am honoured to rise in this House today and speak about the wonderful things that our government has done. Mr. Speaker, since we formed government, in the past 6 months, we have created over 220 full-time jobs, Mr. Speaker. 220,000 full-time jobs, Mr. Speaker. When we look at the unemployment rate, it has gone down from 7% to 6.6%, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our plan is working, and we are going to continue to move forward.
Members are getting excited. Let's take the floor. The Honourable Member for Richmond Centre.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister said that small businesses are just there to help rich people avoid taxes. Clearly, he's never met the hard-working entrepreneurs who actually own small businesses across our nation. And it seems he'll continue the attack on these middle-class families in the upcoming budget. When will the Prime Minister end his attack on small businesses?
Honourable Minister of Small Business and Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, this government recognizes the important work that small business owners do and the contributions that they make to our economy. Our endeavour will always be to help to be more productive, more innovative and export-oriented. This government will continue to take a whole government approach to ensure that we're opening up markets for 99% of business, which is small business. We will continue to work very hard for them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
The Prime Minister has lived his first year in office like the son of a Monaco billionaire. He's traveled, he's partied with celebrities, and threw money at everyone and everything. It all went on the national credit card. Now, to pay the bill, he's nickel and diming small businesses and working people with higher taxes on work, hiring, kids' sports, and fuel, you name it. In next week's budget, will the Prime Minister finally stop the binge before he runs out of other people's money?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our government will continue to build on the commitment to help middle-class Canadians and those working hard to join it. Mr. Speaker, the first thing that this government did when we came to office, we lowered taxes for middle-class Canadians, and we increased them for the wealthy 1%. Mr. Speaker, the other action that this government has taken, we have put in place a very generous Canada Child Benefit Program to help hundreds of thousands of children get out of poverty. And also, Mr. Speaker, we have taken some steps to help our seniors by increasing the guaranteed income supplement for low-income seniors by 10%. Mr. Speaker, our focus is middle-class Canadians, and we will continue to work for them.
Hear, hear. Honourable Member for Carleton.
Well, they admit they don't know what the middle class is, but this week the Social Development Minister produced a diagram full of laser beams to clarify. In it, growth beams inclusive to the middle class, which returns an engine back to growth that is transformed into expectation/mobility that is sent over to trust, which reciprocates with investment/human and physical capital. Finally, trust feeds the middle class, who beam support over to trust. Do the Liberals need Fridays off so that they can continue to deliverologize more synergistic laser beams like these ones?
The Honourable Minister of Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think all members of this House are proud to notice the interests of our colleague in real facts around the decrease in middle-class income taxes, while increasing taxes for the top 1% of Canadians, facts around 900,000 seniors getting up to $1,000 more, and guaranteed income supplement, because we care about vulnerable seniors, Mr. Speaker, and facts around the major impact that the Canada Child Benefit is having across the families of 6 million children in Canada.
The Honourable Member for North Island, Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, hardworking Canadians are struggling to eke out a living, worried about growing household debt. But now we know our own banks are working against us by pressuring Canadians into even more debt and services they don't need. How did the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada fail to notice this behaviour by the big banks? Why have we heard nothing from the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions? Will this minister direct a joint investigation into the marketing and sales practices of Canada's banks? Yes or no?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Canadians deserve strong financial consumer protections that meet their needs, and our government expects that all financial institutions adhere to the highest standards when it comes to their consumer protection obligations. The Financial Consumer Agency of Canada is launching an industry review of the matter of all sales of banks practices. I have full confidence that the review will be thorough and that the agency will use all tools at its disposal to investigate and to address any non-compliance with the law. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Rosemont-La Petite Patrie. Mr. Speaker, evidence and testimony is piling up, and indeed, something is rotten in the state of Canadian banking. Forced sales, toxic financial products, an absence of consent, secrets, and even lies. This is how our banks treat us, even as household debt reaches record levels. Short-term profit, all for stockholders and the devil with the clients. Will the Liberal government accept the NDP motion calling for a parliamentary inquiry into the troubling practices of Canada's banks? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to thank my colleague for his question. Canadians deserve to have strong consumer protection. Our government expects that all financial institutions respect the highest standards. The Consumer Financial Protection Agency will launch a review of bank sales, and I'm confident that the agency will use all tools at its disposal to fix this situation.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are scheming to dramatically change the rules of this House to serve their own partisan interests. They want to shut the place down on Fridays and take a day off at the same time as tens of thousands of Canadian workers have been laid off. And the Prime Minister only wants to have to show up here once a week for question period. These changes will diminish Parliament and greatly reduce government accountability. Will the Liberals respect parliamentary precedent and only proceed with those changes that all parties will agree to, or will they ram these changes through to rig the system in their favour?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, this government recognizes the important work that members of Parliament do in this House and in their constituencies. As a member of Parliament for the riding of Waterloo, I can assure all members that when I return to the riding, I continue working hard for my constituents. I cannot speak for the member opposite, but I'm sure that most members will be doing the same thing, and I would encourage that to be the case. We have released a discussion paper, a conversation to ask the committee to actually broaden the scope of their study to consider modernizing this place as we committed to Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, it's shameful to cast doubt on the work of my colleagues that my colleague does here. The Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, the Government House Leader recently unveiled a document with proposals to modernize how the House conducts its business, and soon after, a similar motion was tabled at the Standing Committee for Procedure and House Affairs. Can the committee chair, the member for Yukon, please tell us when that study will take place? Can he assure us that the committee meetings will not happen in camera? And will he respect the idea of transparency and sunny ways from the Prime Minister?
Honourable Member for Yukon.
Mr. Speaker, as the member knows, the committee is the master of its own destiny. It has a subcommittee that decides the procedure and the timing. The member knows what's in the motion, the timing for improving the operation of this House, and it'll be up to the committee to decide how they arrange the meetings to do that.
The Honourable Member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Mr. Speaker, it's a long-standing practice that no major changes to the standing orders can be adopted without the consent of all parties. To pick one example among many, the Chrétien government established a special committee on House of Commons procedures. That committee produced 6 unanimous reports over its 2-year lifetime. Therefore, can the chair of the Procedure and House Affairs Committee tell the House, will his committee accept the principle of unanimity with respect to changes to the standing orders?
Honourable Member for Yukon.
Mr. Speaker, the committee, as I said before, is in charge of its own procedures, in charge of its own precedents, in charge of its own way of dealing with different motions, and the House, the committee will decide that and proceed on that in that manner.
The Honourable Member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Right, Mr. Speaker, less than 2 hours after the proposals and standing orders were made public, a Liberal MP put forward a motion to, 1, force the Procedure and House Affairs Committee to treat the proposals as a single omnibus measure, and 2, impose draconian deadlines in reporting back to the House. In other words, to impose closure. It appears the Liberals are trying to ram through this motion at a secret in-camera meeting planned for 11 a.m. tomorrow. My question is for the chair of the committee. Number 1, will the closure motion be scheduled for discussion at tomorrow's meeting? And number 2, will that meeting be held in camera or in public?
The Honourable Member for Yukon.
Mr. Speaker,
Order. Order. Members want to hear the answer. They ought to listen. Or perhaps we'll go on to the next question. Well, let's hear the answer then. Honourable Member for Yukon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The member is very experienced in committee operations, and he knows the committee itself makes those decisions.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi. Mr. Speaker, the inquiry into murdered and
Missing Indigenous Women, Girls, and Two-Spirited Persons was launched last year, but actions speak louder than words. The commissioners have yet to meet with the families. Today we learned that the commission has just 90 names identified. Why, Mr. Speaker? Why hasn't the process been set out? Why do the families have to seek out information on how to participate? Will the minister ensure that steps are taken to ensure the families of victims are heard? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, our government is determined to put an end to this national tragedy. We have provided multiple resources to the Commission, including a database that includes hundreds of names. We are also actively cooperating with the Commission to ensure that it has whatever it needs to reach the families and organizations. Our government will continue to provide information and advice to the Commission in order to help keep those commitments. The Honourable Member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Of murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls want justice, but they also want to be heard. Shockingly, the Inquiry Commission only lists 90 victims, and the government is refusing to provide additional names. The Native Women's Association of Canada identified 4,000 victims, and we know that might be only the tip of the iceberg. With hearings scheduled in just 8 weeks, is this government blocking information to the inquiry? Why aren't they doing everything in their power so that all families can be heard?
Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member for the question and the fact that we are absolutely not blocking anything, and we will be doing everything in our power to get them the information. The Native Women's Association, the AFN, ITK, and all of the organizations are working in close collaboration with the Commission, and the families will be heard.
The Honourable Member for Avignon-Lamitis-Matane-Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, since early 2017, the government has been announcing lists of drinking water and wastewater treatment projects under the bilateral agreement with Quebec signed last summer. Last week, I had the opportunity to announce 2 projects in the Lower St. Lawrence for over $20 million. Can the Minister of Infrastructure update us on the details of this program? Thank you.
To thank all of my honourable colleagues from the province of Quebec for their hard work advocating infrastructure projects for their communities. Over the last month, we have announced 89 clean water and wastewater projects worth over $390 million in combined investment funding in 4 regions across Quebec. These projects will ensure that Quebec residents have access to clean and reliable water source. We look forward to sharing similar good news with other regions of Quebec very soon. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Calgary Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, we now know just how disastrous the Liberals' decision to cave to pressure from their corporate friends and left the Mexican visa requirement actually was. Last month saw a 2,500% increase in refugee claims from Mexico. The cost to taxpayers of false refugee claims from Mexico was why our Conservative government implemented the visa requirement in the first place. With so many people out of work, when will the Liberals reinstate the visa requirement?
Well, Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, it is very rich for that member and that government and that previous party to bring up the Mexico visa lift because they considerably damaged our relationship with Mexico, which we are responsibly rebuilding and strengthening. The Mexican visa lift will lead to lasting economic benefits for Canada with more tourists, more legitimate travelers. We've already seen that impact with triple the number of legitimate travelers into Canada. This will continue to create economic benefits for our country. We work closely with Mexican officials to address any risks to this issue, and we will ensure its success. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, our government responsibly prevented taxpayers from paying $250 million in false refugee claims. So with taxpayers on the hook for for this giant increase in refugee claims, a flood of illegal migrants at our American border, the public safety minister's response was last week, maybe we should line up the RCMP at the border, they should all link arms and shoot people away, or maybe use fire hoses, or whatever. I'm serious. When are the Liberals going to stop treating this like a joke?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, if the member opposite and the party opposite are against a threefold increase in legitimate Mexican travelers to Canada, then they're welcome to express that sentiment. We are working very hard to strengthen and continue to expand on the strong bilateral relationship with Mexico, which was damaged considerably by the party opposite when they were in government. We have mechanisms in place, and we're working very closely with Mexican officials to address any risks related to the visa lift. And we've already witnessed lasting economic benefits from the visa lift. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are still waiting for answers on the logic and manner of Stéphane Dion's extraordinarily clumsy diplomatic appointments. Canada's professional diplomats, past and present, at headquarters and abroad, are dismayed and discouraged. Mr. Dion's status in Brussels will diminish the rank and the authority of the ambassador in place. Mr. Dion's status with Germany as a still uninvited special advisor is a diplomatic faux pas. For a ministerial house cleaning so long in the works, Mr. Speaker, why this diplomatic train wreck?
Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, let me remind my honourable colleague of what the leader of his party said when Stéphane left this House. She described him as a Canadian who understood the issues in minute detail and was prepared to vigorously defend his positions. As for the orders in council, Mr. Speaker, it was a procedural step, and each appointee will receive 2 orders in council. The Prime Minister and I heard in Europe a couple of weeks ago the highest respect for Mr. Dion. We're honoured to have him represent us.
Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the bungling of Mr. Dion's diplomatic consolation prizes reflects badly not only on this Liberal government, not only with the offended EU and German host countries, but the broader international community. What else have the Liberals forgotten to do, Mr. Speaker? Are there loose ends as well with regards to Mr. Dion's dual citizenship?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, speaking on behalf of our diplomats and our fine ambassadors, let me say to be an ambassador serving Canada around the world is no consolation prize. It is one of the highest honours that we can confer.
Member for Essex.
While Liberals claim Canada would not be the target of Trump's trade policies, it's now clear that the U.S. wants to get tough on softwood lumber. Last week, the U.S. Trade Representative nominee said softwood lumber is at the top of his list and that U.S. industry wants quotas on Canadian imports. Any new deal must allow small producers to export and provide flexibility for the provinces. Without a deal, Canada's softwood lumber sector is braced for punishing duties of 25% or more. Will the Liberals support the sector with loan guarantees and assistance for workers and communities?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Speaker, we realize how important the forestry sector is to Canada, all regions of the country. We have begun to have very good conversations with our counterparts in the provinces who might be affected by American action. We're certain that we will offer a coordinated way of protecting the jobs that are of interest not only to us, but to the entire country.
The honourable member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, the closure of HMV stores has led to the bankruptcy last week of record distributor DEP, bringing marketing to an abrupt halt for Quebec artists from Vincent Valliere to the Montreal Symphony Orchestra, not to mention Florence Kay. This is the latest sign of the collapse of the Quebec record industry. Canada needs to position itself immediately to regulate all digital platforms, whether they're based in Montreal, LA, or a tax haven. Can the minister tell us what she's doing to ensure that all cultural platforms contribute to our ecosystem and to the same tax system as everyone else?
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for his important question and his interest in this file. Clearly, we've launched public consultations over the past year to rethink the whole impact of digital services on the entire cultural ecosystem in Canada. And over the course of 2017, I will be presenting major reforms precisely to deal with some of the issues my colleague has raised. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has already spent 5 times what the previous government spent on polling, and this latest announcement of increased spending on weekly polling is just another example of this Liberal government's wasteful spending in their lust to get re-elected. Cash for access, blurring the lines between government and party business, and now weekly calls to see how Canadians are reacting to the latest broken promise, ethics scandal, and bad government policy. When will the Liberals quit spending taxpayers' money on polling to see if Canadians are buying their nonsense?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, this government made a commitment to Canadians to work hard for middle-class Canadians and those working hard to join it. That's exactly why we lowered taxes on middle-class Canadians by increasing taxes on the wealthiest 1% of Canadians. This government has taken unprecedented levels of public consultations to ensure that Canadians can interact and communicate with this government. We will continue to listen to them and to respond to the very real challenges that they are facing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, another case of reckless Liberal spending comes to light. According to recent reports in the media, the Liberal government has spent $2.5 million over the past year to figure out what it should do. Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister tell us why, in just 16 months, he has already spent more than the previous decade of Conservative government on public opinion polls? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, our government uses multiple methods to better understand Canadians' viewpoints and to assess their expectations and needs, and we share them with all departments, and we will constantly listen to Canadians on various issues and priorities that impact their daily lives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hat Cardston Warner.
Mr. Speaker, the Medicine Hat Carson Warner by-election took place on October 24th, 2016. We know the Prime Minister used government aircraft and government staff while he was campaigning in that by-election. Last week, it was revealed that the Prime Minister also used the nonpartisan Privy Council office and their staff to support those same campaign events. Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister confirm that he is using Privy Council office resources to again help campaign in the upcoming 5 by-elections?
Honourable Government House Leader.
It's important for members to know, and I'm sure they would support, that the Prime Minister must always be in a position to carry out official government duties. The Prime Minister is always in contact with his office and is routinely provided with briefing materials during all travel, domestically and internationally, whether on personal or government business. The Prime Minister is prepared in advance of all events and is afforded the same support as previous Prime Ministers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Dorval-Lachine-LaSalle. Mr. Speaker, a terrible food and nutritional crisis is currently raging in Nigeria, Somalia, South Sudan, and Yemen. The UN recently declared it was the worst humanitarian crisis since 1945. On Friday, Canada announced funding to assist the poorest and most vulnerable people affected by this crisis. Could the Minister of International Development and the Francophonie inform the House of the details of this important announcement? Thank you. Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague from Dorval-Lachine-LaSalle for her interest in this topic. Indeed, our government is very concerned about the famine that is raging in Nigeria, Somalia, South Sudan, and Yemen. We Yemen. We recently announced $120 million for food, healthcare, clean water, and sanitation facilities. We are putting the focus on having the parties involved in the conflict, that having them provide access to humanitarian services.
In Ukraine are on the rise with increasing violation of the Minsk peace agreements. Unfortunately, the Liberal support for Ukraine is on the decline. Extending our conservative military mission in Ukraine is welcome, but there's more that Canada can offer. The Liberals have already cancelled supplies of radar satellite images. They refused to sign the Defense Cooperation Agreement and have backed down from their campaign promise to implement Magnitsky-styled sanctions on corrupt foreign officials. Will the Liberals stop disappointing our Ukrainian allies and respect their requests for providing lethal defensive weapons?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, our government stands shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine. Our military planners and whole government approach, we consult with our allies, the UK and the US, to making sure that we have the right support. Operation Unify is just one portion of that. We also take a look at the wider support that we've also provided with our support of Op Reassurance, sending troops into Latvia. That sends a strong message to Russia. Our air policing that we'll be doing and the frigate that we have there. Mr. Speaker, in totality, this sends an extremely strong message to Russia. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Esquimalt, Saanich Sooke.
Last Thursday, the Liberals released a supposed recovery plan for the southern resident killer whales, but one that includes no action. Only 78 southern residents still remain, and even the National Energy Report on Kinder Morgan found that extinction is the likely outcome from a major oil spill. Why have the Liberals failed to reinstate funding for Straits Watch, the on-the-water orca monitoring program? And why have they failed to fund or even consider proposals from stakeholders to protect this endangered species? Or, on this Prime Minister's watch, will Canadians see the extinction of BC Southern resident orcas?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to Minister of Fisheries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government is fully committed to the protection and recovery of our iconic resident killer whale populations, and we will continue to work to better understand the threats to this population. The proposed action plan for the northern and southern resident killer whale in Canada was released last summer for public consultation, and we now have the finalized report. And I am happy to share that many of the recovery actions that are identified in the killer whale recovery strategy and action plan are already underway.
The Honourable Member for Mississauga-Streetsville.
Mr. Speaker, aviation safety is something all Canadians care about. With Pearson Airport close to my riding, recent incidents involving drones entering restricted airspace and flying close to airplanes are concerning to my constituents of Mississauga-Streetsville. Can the Minister please update Canadians on the actions the government is taking in order to improve aviation safety?
The Honourable Minister of Transport.
I'd like to thank the member from Mississauga-Streetsville for his very important question. Last week we announced government measures to make recreational drone flying safer, both in the skies as well as on the ground. So we put in place some measures that took effect immediately last Thursday. These are interim measures until such time as we come out later this year with permanent measures to make our skies and the ground safer.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, every week more and more people criticize the Liberal decision to acquire 18 outdated Super Hornets. This time it's former General Jean Boyle, former VP of International Affairs at Boeing when the Super Hornets were developed. He feels that NORAD will use its best assets, the F-35s and F-22s, not fourth-generation jets like the Super Hornets, to defend the far north. In view of this fact, why do the Liberals insist on buying an outdated aircraft at $300 million a pop, which will be useless? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, for the first time in 10 years, our soldiers can hope to be able to use new ships and new jets. We're very proud that we will be providing the Canadian Armed Forces with new equipment. We have undertaken discussions with our partners in the U.S., and we will deliver the goods for the forces. The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, today the Quebec Superior Court begins hearing the challenge to Bill 99, which recognizes the people of Quebec's right to self-determination and independence. This is what Ottawa's invasive federalism has brought us to, forcing Quebec to defend a basic democratic principle. The federal government under Stephen Harper decided to intervene in the case. Will this government withdraw from the court challenge to Bill C-99 and recognize Quebec's right to self-determination?
Mr. Speaker, our government is committed to upholding our constitutional values and to upholding cooperative federalism. Under the previous government, Canada was added by Mr. Henderson as a third party to proceedings. As such, we are obligated to appear and participate in proceedings. Our government believes that Bill 99 is constitutional insofar as it is interpreted in a way that is consistent with the Canadian Constitution and within the jurisdiction of the Legislature of Quebec, and it would be inappropriate for me to comment further as this matter is before the court.
The honourable member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. The current government is not bound by the previous government's commitments or undertakings, as far as I know. Quebecers of all stripes, not just sovereignists, want Ottawa to stay out of this matter. Even the National Assembly passed a unanimous resolution to that effect. But the Liberals are as unfazed by that as Stephen Harper was. They're still supporting those who oppose the people of Quebec's right to independence. And they would have us believe Ottawa isn't trying to force Quebec to remain stuck in Canada. Is the federal government going to abandon the court challenge to Bill 99, yes or no? The Honourable Justice Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And again, I'm happy to stand up and say our government is committed to upholding the constitutional values and to ensuring and upholding cooperative federalism. As this matter is before the court, it would be inappropriate for me to comment further.
The Honourable Member for Joliette. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After isolating Quebec by negotiating with the smaller provinces one at a time, the night of the long scalpels. After using the divide-and-conquer federalist strategy, the health minister is high-fiving her colleagues. High five, we sucked Quebec in. Instead of smug high fives, will the minister apologize to patients in Quebec who are the first victims of decreased federal funding? The Honourable Health Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over the past few months, I've had great discussions with all my counterpart health ministers. That includes Quebec's health minister. And last week, we were very pleased to enter into new agreements. And for Quebec, that means $2.5 billion in new funding for mental health and home care. Those are things Quebec wants. They want to invest in those areas. This is good news, and that's the reason for the high fives. Thank you.
I would like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of His Excellency Lubomir Zaoralek, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Czech Republic. I believe the honourable minister, honourable leader of the House, government House leader is rising on a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, during question period, the member for Outremont said that his party voted in favour of Bill C-2. I know that no member of this House would want to mislead Canadians, which is why I am tabling in both official languages excerpts from Hansard from September 20th, 2016, which shows the member from Outremont and others from his party voting against the middle-class tax cut at third reading in this House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. This will conclude question period for today.